We all know that Doak Campbell Stadium is one of the best atmospheres in all of college football. Even EA's college football video game rated it top 10, I'll add ahead of UF when the new video game came out. But an ACC quarterback recently took a shot at FSU's atmosphere, and it was really rather telling and maybe even funny when you think about it. Let's talk about it in today's video, which is brought to you by gotspears.com. Make sure you're using TAKE50, TAKE50 for $50 off spears, gatorheads, and rush shipping. They're the best spears in the game at gotspears.com. Now, recently on the two legendary podcasts, that's Shador's podcast, Kyron Drones, Virginia Tech quarterback, said, the best stadium other than ours, I'm putting ours in a league that's number one. He said, best stadium that I played in last year, that has to be Louisville. It's just so loud. The stadium's small. That's why it's so loud. Drones was then asked about FSU's atmosphere. He called it overhyped. He said it may go better for a night game, may go crazy for a night game, but the game was overhyped. It was not nearly as loud as Louisville's, though. Now, of course, Florida State's environment is unlike many that you'll see across the country. You guys know this. When you look at the entirety of a season or the entirety of several seasons, there's really no question about it. We know about the war chant. We know about the fireworks that they shoot off before the game. Osceola and Renegade, they're planting the spear at midfield. The way that Osceola is riding Renegade around as the opposing team comes through. The way that our team comes out through the marching Chiefs, and then thousands and thousands and thousands of fans all doing the chop and yelling at the top of their lungs. If you've experienced it, there's honestly nothing like the entire atmosphere environment. Certainly wouldn't say that Doak is the loudest stadium. I wouldn't put it up against Baton Rouge or anything like that, but it's one of the louder stadiums that I've been to, and I've been to a lot, and it's certainly an atmosphere when you factor everything else in that is unlike many. Now, let's go back to that Virginia Tech-Florida State game. Virginia Tech came into that game at 2-4. Florida State was 5-0. The Noles were a 23.5-point favorite, and they were also coming off of a bye. It was a 3:30 kickoff. It was well-attended. It was a sellout. There were 79,000-plus people there. But then the game started, and the score was 22-0 after the first quarter. And when you're playing against a mid to bad team, I mean, let's call it what it is. Virginia Tech was a 2-win team coming into Doak, and you're a massive favorite, and then you take a massive lead against somebody. Do you expect the crowd to be cheering like it's the Gator game and it's a one-score game late in November during the night? The crowd may have been pretty chill from that point on, but if your argument was that the crowd wasn't into it, or maybe the crowd wasn't as loud, maybe that says more about your team and your performance than anything else. Let's talk about that. Drones had 104 passing yards, a little bit more rushing, but honestly, 40 yards of that came after a really bad late hit call that took away a beautiful interception on the sideline from the Noles. And it's not just the 3:30 kickoff. Florida State against Miami was a 3:30 kickoff in 2021. That crowd was absolutely lit. Florida State and Florida and Clemson in 2022 were lit games. Florida State and Duke in 2023 was one that certainly comes to mind. And even against bad teams, you remember Boston College in 2022, Trey Benson taking that kickoff back to the house, the Noles coming back after beating Louisville after starting the year off really strong. That game was lit. And then certainly Miami last year, a rivalry game that was at night, was another really fun one. But what it all comes down to isn't necessarily the crowd in Tallahassee. FSU fans are always ready to go off, but if a bad team comes in and that bad team immediately starts getting blown out, what exactly do you want the home crowd to do? I can guarantee if the roles were reversed and we were at Virginia Tech and Florida State went up 22-0 in the first quarter, many of their fans would leave. I know probably several of our students left. Several of our students got a head start on the Madso line and the bar line that would take place after the Virginia Tech game. But the game was a snoozer. Virginia Tech actually made it close after a couple of scores in the second quarter and then a kickoff return for a touchdown to start the second half. But they didn't score again after that. Drones wasn't able to do anything against a relaxed crowd. It seems like a pretty unnecessary shot to me. I'm not sure exactly why you would call FSU's crowd overhyped, but I guess when you don't have to play them this year, it's something that you can get away with. There's nothing that Florida State can do to prove that the crowd is as hyped as it probably should be. We could get into the debate about, well, is Virginia Tech a better atmosphere than Florida State? And I'll tell you this, I bet a 2-win Virginia Tech atmosphere isn't a better atmosphere than anything Florida State puts out there. The other side of it is that he threw for, again, 100 yards in front of an overhyped or maybe not intimidating crowd. I'd be worried about what he would look like against a good atmosphere, against a crowd that does bring it. The good news for him is that Virginia Tech plays at Miami this year, so their big road game probably won't see a great atmosphere this year either. They get Clemson at home. They play an SEC opponent, but spoiler, it's Vandy. So I don't know that he'll see a good atmosphere this year. That Louisville game that he mentioned, I believe they lost by 30 last season. I'm interested to see if, in today's age of social media, which I'm not necessarily wanting or hoping for this, but I'm interested to see if any FSU players may respond to this or anyone may fire a shot back. But crowd or not, throwing for 104 yards and then talking any kind of smack or firing any kind of shot against a team that just dominated the conference is wild to me. But it is 2024, so I guess that's what we do. Now, I get stuff from you guys all the time of, well, you don't defend the team or you don't fight for the team or this, that, and the other. And really after December, I don't really understand how anyone could accuse me of that ever again. But we saw the shot today and figured we'd share our 2 cents and our thoughts on it. The shot being what it is, the take being what it is, maybe just don't talk crap if you can't throw for 150 yards in a football game, especially against a mid crowd or an atmosphere that's not intimidating. What are you guys' thoughts? Let's talk about it down in the comments. What are some of your favorite places to play? What are some big atmospheres? I appreciate you guys for always tuning in. I appreciate you guys for always being part of the channel and locked in with us. Here's a fun one for you. Appreciate you guys for watching this. Go Noles.